Hey guys, so we've been talking about God's mercy and how His mercy is abundant. And we're going to continue with that idea today in this little short clip, the abundance of God's mercy. Let's go to it. Verse in Matthew chapter 9, verse 13, where it says um, that where Jesus tells the Pharisees there that God desires mercy and not sacrifice, and he instructs them to go learn what it means. And we kind of was going over how that when we look at the parable of the Good Samaritan, we see the abundance of God's mercy within that parable. How the Good Samaritan goes above and beyond what would normally be thought of. Most people might help somebody, but they're not going to go out of their way and pay their debt or pay their bills for their health care. If you think about it. So we're kind of going to go with that same line today, because I was thinking of another place that we look over and it's in the Sermon on the Mount, and it's another place where Jesus speaks of going crossing boundaries, going beyond what you assume is normal, and cross them boundaries, but that we do it in a merciful way, in a loving way. Let's just go look to it. It says Sermon on the Mount, and it's down here in toward the end of Matthew chapter 5, verse 43, where it says, "You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. For he makes his sun to rise on evil and on good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? You therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect." So we want to look at this last phrase right here, because Jesus says that you must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. And when we look in the context of what he's referring to, he said, that we should love our enemies, that we should pray for them that persecute us and that use us despitefully, in some translations. But and how he says that we're to do that. But normally, a normal person, if somebody is mean to you, your first reaction is we want to be mean back. That's what we would assume would be something that's normal. But Jesus said not so. He said that we're to love our enemies. And then he goes on and says that we're to be perfect as our Heavenly Father is perfect. So let's pull that verse up here. And if we look at it in the Greek, in the word perfect here is what I want to show to you. Let's go over here to the teleos. And it means having reached its end, complete, perfect. Perfect, complete in all parts, full grown of full age, especially of completeness. It says of the Christian character. Which if you go down here to the help study, it's very interesting because it comes from this word telos, which means consummated goal. So when you consummate something, it's two parties come together to consummate, like a husband and wife, where they consummate the marriage or that kind of thing. So that's the consummate, but it's the idea of maturing, from going through the necessary stages to reach the end goal, developed into a consummating completion by fulfilling the necessary process. And then it goes on, the root tel means reaching the end, like aim. It is well illustrated with the old pirate's telescope, to go toward that goal. It's extending out one stage at a time to function at full strength. So like a telescope, it goes out one part at a time until it reaches that full strength. This is the idea of this word, perfection. It's not that we've already become perfect, but we're running towards a goal. And Paul kind of refers to this idea in other places, not just this place, but in Romans chapter 10, verse 4, where it says, "For the end of the law is Christ unto righteousness to everyone believing." And let's just read from the English Standard Version. "For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes." So if we pull this up here in the interlinear, it says the end of the law, and we see that's the word telos. Telos meaning the end. It's meaning going toward a certain goal. But in this aspect, it's though we've already reached that end. Even though we haven't arrived there yet, we should live today as though we've already arrived, if that makes sense, in my view. And we see the same aspect that Jesus tells the disciples in Luke chapter 6, verse 40, where he says, "Not as a disciple is above a teacher." His disciple is not above the teacher. A student is not above the teacher. But when he is fully trained, however, he will be like his teacher. So we see this same concept in Luke that Jesus refers to, when he is fully trained, he'll be like his teacher. So I see that we've sold the gospel way short, because Jesus wouldn't put a goal out there for us if it wasn't reachable. And the way we reach it is through, if my understanding is through the law. We shall be like the Father, as the Apostle Paul points out. Let's go back over here. The end of the law, the goal of the law is Messiah. As he also points at another place, it's our school teacher. It's our school teacher to point us toward the Christ. So, and we are to be his reflection. So anyway, that's the end of this little session here. Hope everybody enjoyed it. And we'll do another one next time. Thank you.